to the football show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff and Tam McManus here with me in the studio, and here's what's coming up.
Brendan Rodgers 200% committed to being at Celtic next year as Hibs clinch the title. Hearts are looking for a new manager after Neil Critchley sacked. Premiership PFA Player of the Year nominees announced. And Liverpool seal their 20th top flight title in Arne Slot's first season.
Yeah, lots to discuss. We'll also cast an eye towards Serie A. Would you believe it? There could be a couple of Scots getting themselves a title-winning medal as well if Napoli hold on to the advantage in the run-in to the Italian Championship as well. So many teams and players, individuals celebrating winning the title north and south of the border because Celtic were the champions in Scotland, Liverpool the champions in England. As for the Championship, we don't quite know where that's going yet, but give us your thoughts on your favourite team and their performance over the course of the weekend. First of all, congratulations to Celtic, a 55th title with that 5-0 emphatic win over Dundee United. And I think, as Callum McGregor mentioned on countless occasions going up to it, that winning a title is not easy. Some people may well look at the financial strength of Celtic, but you still have to have not only the technical ability, the team ability, but you have to have that psychological strength to keep on driving to get there in the end, Ruffy.
Yeah, it's a kind of pressure that they have to deal with that other teams don't, you know, and when you're going to park and you're expected to win every week, that pressure sometimes can mount, particularly if there's a challenge just breathing over your shoulder, but that never happened this year. But certainly they've still got to go out and maintain a performance, because if you don't maintain the performance, somebody else will take your place.
Yeah, and in the end, you know, it was a little bit of a stroll against Dundee United. The Celtic fans were out there in force, and so were the Tangerines and the other inflatable balls, Tam.
Yeah, they were obviously the Celtic supporters not happy with the pricing up at the game. I think 43 quid or something like that, which is scandalous for a game of football. To be honest, I think Dundee United took the mickey out of that. I think they knew that Celtic were going to bring out a large contingent of supporters in their Instam, I think, for money. So
something needs to be done about that, Tam.
Yeah, it's not just Dundee United. I'm not picking them out. It's £30 £35 at other games as well. And yeah, people have not got any money, Peter. And that's the thing. You know, you're paying 40 odd quid for a ticket. You know, you're travelling up there, maybe getting a pie and a programme and stuff like that. You're maybe 70, 80 quid if you've got kids. You're more. So yeah, I think they've got to do something about that. I think 20 quid, £25 max should be the you know, the fees for going to games. Tickets, you want full stadiums, but you're pricing the supporter out of the working class supporter out of the stadiums.
Yeah, what about the overall game? 5-0, and you know, there's always a story here and there within the 90 minutes. Nicolas Kühn maybe just casting his ears towards people who've been critical of him, and then giving it one of these signs as well. To be fair, you know, Nicolas Kühn, like many other footballers, has to take it in the chin if people have him, you know, producing great for him up into the Bayern Munich game, really good against Bayern Munich, and then he just dropped off a wee bit.
Yeah, I think when you set such high standards, Peter, like he done the first half of the season, then people expect it every week, and he hasn't done that. I think after the Bayern Munich game, he's been off form. I think the game against Rangers at Parkhead, he was dreadful, get hooked at half time. He's been hooked at half time a couple of games, so he's not been doing it. He's had a wee spell out the team, maybe that was a kick up the backside that he needed. He's come back in and he looked sharp the last couple of games, took his goals well, and looked sharp on the day. But yeah, I think you're always going to be criticised if you set such a high standard and then you don't fulfil that in you know, preceding games. So I think the Celtic supporters are well within their rights to give him a bit of stick. But if he plays like that every week, Peter, then they have no issues at all with the supporters.
Yeah, overall comfortable for them.
You know, I think Dundee started the game well, but I think when you get games like that where Celtic are on the verge of the title and they've got a big support supporting them, you can get heavy defeats like that. And with Jim Goodwin listening, I think the other result probably went for him. Hibs getting beat, so they're still just about in the race. But they've got a big game at Easter Road this weekend.
Yeah, we did mention that Brendan Rodgers has guided Celtic to the 2 domestic trophies, one still on offer, and it could be on the way to a 6th treble in the last decade, which is no mean feat. This is what Brendan Rodgers had to say about his own future. It's 200% that I'll be here for sure next season because we want to build again and we want to grow. I'm so happy I came back to Celtic because of the challenge, knowing the pressures. My emotional attachment to the club clearly has me here rather than be elsewhere. It's just a chance to be the best manager at Celtic I can possibly be. Days like today make it special. Well, certainly is special because he's the most decorated living Celtic manager, and that's no mean feat. Is it redemption, Ruffy, on the basis that, there was a lot of people were maybe looking at him and saying, okay, the majority, I think, of Celtic fans are looking and saying, redemption, you've done really well. You've, delivered what we were hoping for. And, fair play to you. The misdemeanour of the past has maybe been put on the back burner with, I think, a lot of them.
Yeah, I think he was very honest in his interview. He did mention just what you've said there. He knew when he came back there was a nucleus of the support. And the other thing he said was in-house as well. And he must have known that was people were not happy with the way it all happened and went away. So it was a brave man for him to come back, and hope that he could turn over everybody who was against him. And he did that very, very quickly with the signings and the way they were playing and winning trophies. So I would like to think that most of the people out there who didn't fancy him coming back have now changed their minds.
Yeah. I still think at the end of the day, you have to look at the remit that he was given. He'll be aware that he had to convince people that he could change their opinion of him maybe with the performance of the team. And with that in mind, I only looked at it from a coaching perspective on this. Good coach. I've been critical of him. We've paid the penalty, Tam, for that, which I still stand by. But this time around, in his second time around, I think there's redemption for a lot of Celtic fans, and I think he deserves tremendous praise on the basis that the remit is try and get Celtic to an advanced stage in a European competition further than they've gone of late. And I think he's achieved that. And he also proved to a lot of people that I can get spanked in Dortmund and learn the lesson and change the side and produce, a fabulous performance against Munich and, of course, get them over the line with games to spare.
Yeah, I think he's done a great job, Peter. I think when you look at the overall season, they're odds-on favourites to go and win the treble now. And listen, I think the new Champions League format suited Celtic. I think not being in there with two big guns, two big seeds, when they'd really struggled in recent years just to even finish third to get into the Europa League. So I think the new format suited them. I think the fixtures were pretty kind. I'm not taking anything away from Celtic. They still had to go out and win those games, but I thought that some of the games at home particularly were pretty kind for them. Dortmund away, heavily criticised, tactically all over the place. And we thought, will he change? He said he did. He said he wouldn't. He still played the same way, but I think he definitely tweaked it. I think he definitely went more solid away from home. They went to Atlanta and got a great draw 0-0, and I think they got the confidence from that to kick on throughout the next game. So, yeah, I think he's set a high bar for next season, Peter, because I don't think it'll be as easy next year. Rangers surely cannot be as bad next season as they have been this season, and getting to the knockout stage and running Bayern Munich close. So he set a really, really high bar this year, and to come back and top that next year will take some doing for me.
Yeah, Shug says, who would have thought 15 years ago that James Forrest would be Celtic's most decorated player of all time? Excellent stuff from James. Well, James Forrest himself after the game was talking about it. Got quite emotional for the player. I have loved being at this club. As I was walking off the pitch, I started getting a bit emotional and I was having to try to control it. It was an unbelievable feeling. It is great to be part of this team, and in the last few years it's been a very successful era for Celtic. I met Bobby Lennox a few times. He's not keeping great just now, so I plan on going to see him this week, which is a lovely touch from a boy who never hogs any pages for controversy, just gets on with his job. Sometimes when he has picked up injuries and then he comes back into the side, people see the quality that they've missed.
Yeah, and even before he started picking these injuries, he was a big player, particularly in the European style of football that they were playing. He was generally man of the match in that, and then he obviously injuries. But to have a player like that, with everything, the experience behind him, to be on the bench and coming on. I mean, I think if we look back to the end of last season, I thought he was the big player for Celtic, coming on and winning games, scoring goals. So I'm sure a lot of Celtic supporters, he hopes he can get that goal that he's scored in every season that he's played in. So he's got a couple of games to play, so let's hope he gets it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Celtic, as you would expect, really at the forefront of the nominees announced today for the PFA Player of the Year. Callum McGregor's in there, Daizen Maeda, Nicolas Kühn, and Simon Murray of Dundee is in there as one of the nominees.
I think well deserved, Peter. I was surprised it wasn't in the other one, and I think Dalby got in before him.
Team of the Year.
Team of the Year. I thought Simon would have been in there. I think Dundee United have obviously had a better season than Dundee. I think Simon Murray playing with a team that's been near the bottom of the league all season has really excelled. He doesn't get a lot of chances, but he's scored in big games.
22 goals, Tam.
22 goals, and listen, he done it with Ross County as well. You're thinking to yourself, what would he do in a better team? No disrespect to those clubs. If he went to a Hearts or an Aberdeen or Hibs, how many goals would he score? So, I think he's well deserved to be in there, Peter. And not single-handedly, but he's been a massive part of Dundee. Hopefully, stay away from the bottom two.
Yeah, I was thinking of all the years that I've been involved in the PFA Player of the Year awards. I'm trying to think in the last 4 or 5 years if Callum McGregor actually hasn't been nominated. He's been so consistent, and of course, fresh from celebrating. I'm not sure Callum or most of the Celtic players would have gone over the top like the two characters who work on this show, but certainly he would have enjoyed celebrating Celtic winning the title. And there's a big game coming up next weekend, which Callum himself and most of his teammates will be looking maybe for a little bit of revenge.
Exactly, it's a perfect game for us after winning the league, and we've actually got 4 really good games still to go, plus the cup final. So that'll keep us focused and motivated and want to arrive into the cup final in the best possible way, so we can enjoy being champions. But obviously we know what's riding on the game at the weekend as well. We want to put it right after what happened in the last one. So yeah, it's the perfect game for us, really.
On and off the pitch, he's been a perfect captain.
Unbelievable. I mean, everybody obviously talks about Billy McNeil being obviously the main man. I think Callum has come in after the captains that came before him and done everything that he's been asked to do. I think on the park as well, I think he's been very, very 100% the main man in that Celtic team for a long time. He's taken over for Scott Brown, handled himself very, very well, and just like James Forrest, he just gets about his job and leaves the talking on the park.
Yeah, of course, the team that didn't really want to make up the numbers at the weekend, Dundee United, Jim Goodwin, fairly philosophical on that hammering.
You get greedy, don't you? Start of the season, we all would have probably, accepted finishing 7th or 8th. The fact that we finished in the top half, I think, is a great achievement. But now everybody's talking about Europe, so the pressure is still on, very much so. And we want to experience European football as well as a staff and as a group of players.
Yeah, so Jim Goodwin still has that feeling that they can do it. And as you said, the games are still there for everybody. Aberdeen have drawn level with Hibs, but United not out of it. There's still 4 games left to swing this.
Yeah, it's a huge game at the weekend. Peter, they go to Easter Road. I think Hibs will be looking to bounce back, obviously, from a disappointing defeat at the weekend. And Dundee United, for me, need to win that if they have any aspirations of finishing 3rd. So, 3rd, 4th, 5th, probably get into the preliminary rounds of Europe. And if they do that, then it's a great season for them. But I still think if they can beat Hibs, then they've got a chance of finishing 3rd. But I don't think they will, but I think Dundee United have had a great season. I just think they were unfortunate to run into a Celtic team that had the scent in the nostrils of winning the title again, and they were on song at the weekend, and Dundee United had no answers to it.
Yeah, Ruffy Don says, great to be back. I was in hospital for major surgery, but home again recovering, and couldn't ask for a better Monday afternoon. PLZ Live with Peter, Tam and Ruffy, and celebrating Celtic being the champions again. It's always good to. The last thing we want is to lose any of our viewers or listeners.
Not at all. And
how you feel?
Yeah, I feel great. A lot better than it was a couple of months ago. But You know, it's good that we don't know what he's went through in the hospital, but it just shows you, that football can bring a smile to a lot of people's faces when they're down, and good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't quite expect as extensive a thought process into it from you, but
Well
nevertheless.
soon, Don. That's all you need to say.
Yeah, well done, Don. Great to have you back with us, but obviously some in-depth analysis there from Ruffy that took us all by surprise. Anyway, before we talk about St Mirren against the Rangers, I have to say thank you to so many people who have been obviously responding to our launch of PLZ Premium. We've got some really good content, exclusive content coming up over the next few months that I think you're really going to enjoy. But I do emphasise to you, everything that you watch at the moment and you have been watching remains absolutely free. PLZ Premium is additional content, unique stuff. I'll be going out, Tam, Ruffy, all of us giving you some unique additional content that I think you'll enjoy. Today we'll launch Leon Smith, the Davis Cup captain.
Yep.
I caught up with him over the last week or so, Ruffy, and talked all things Andy Murray, tennis, and his love of a certain Scottish Premiership team. And he's got a favourite player as well.
Are you going to tell us who that is?
Well, I'm going to tell you that two of his brothers are big Rangers fans.
Right,
So
okay.
that might steer you towards what he's going to be talking about. It might not, though, but...
Yeah, but no, he's been a fantastic season in there. Davis Cup team for Britain has been very successful over the year, obviously with Andy Murray, and everybody thought when Andy Murray was going to retire, they maybe disappear, but the Drapers and all the young guys that are coming up now we're back to where we are now. I know we're not at the top, but I'm sure we'll get there. But he's been a big player in the park.
Yeah.
Got a wee game, Neil? Game of tennis for him? Can we give you some lessons?
Well, to be fair, he lives in Edinburgh, and he did say to us, listen, I'd love to get my sidekick and play against you and Ruffy, but Ruffy's finished as a tennis player now. It's
he's
all
retired
gone.
for the tennis?
You're not going to
No,
play.
remarkable.
He's gone.
No, remarkable recovery this morning with my physio.
Is that right?
He says I'm not far away from actually taking a more physical challenge.
Is that what Brian said that to you?
Yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. He said that to me and I was still out for a year. Anyway, thank you to anyone who has indeed. The first 1,000 subscribers to our PLZ Premium will be fully aware of all the additional stuff we're giving you and discount on the shop. And also the first 1,000 who subscribe get a Legends poster as well as some other fantastic offers in the bag for you. So hopefully you're going to enjoy that. Lots of really good content coming your way. But as ever with PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel, our social media, our reporters are everywhere, and we will be talking about Falkirk a little later on. We've got a documentary, Ruffy.
Yep.
It was supposed to be all singing, all dancing streamers talk us through it. It
An
could,
18 certificate horror on Saturday.
it could be a Wes Craven movie by the end of it, couldn't it?
Oh, I mean, it's an incredible collapse, really.
Yeah.
Still in their own hands, but I think that one win in the last two would have done it for them, but they've lost both games, so squeaky bum time if you're a Falkirk fan.
Absolutely. No surprise Stephen Robinson wants me to stay away from St Mirren until the end of the season. He did say that he wanted to try and get 10 points. They're going to have a right go to try and get European football. Well, to be honest with you, Ruffy, St Mirren are making a go of it. They've got a point in the bag against a team whose interim manager at the moment, Barry Ferguson, said he wanted 15 points from the 5 games, and they've tripped at the first hurdle.
Yeah, I listened to Barry's interview after the game, and some of the quotes he was coming away with looked as if he'd had enough. He's doing his best to get them back and the players back to the form that we're in, but he practically said, doesn't matter what I do, there's half of them not listening to me, so what's the point? I think that was his exact words, and that just shows you the frustration from the people on the coaching side. Once these guys go over the white line, they just don't perform, or they're not up to putting on a Rangers jersey and performing at that level.
Here's the Rangers manager, Barry Ferguson.
People don't fear playing Rangers now. Whether that's at home or away, they enjoy coming to Ibrox teams, and then when you go away from home, teams look if they can bully you, run hard on you, getting about you, and that's something that again needs to change going forward. You need to build a strong team domestically, and I'm sure whoever takes the job will hopefully totally understand that.
Well, I don't know if that's resignation to the point that he might not be getting it. I disagree with you on the fact that I think he would have thrown in the towel on the job, because the one thing I know about Barry, he's desperately hoping he could become the Rangers manager to get a chance to make it his own team. But, you know, when you continually get performances like that from Rangers, he's inherited a team of not underachievers and failures.
Yeah, I do feel for him, Peter, because there's no doubt about it that a majority of that squad he wouldn't have signed. He wouldn't sign. I think they're a real weak group of players mentally. I think they can only get up for bigger games. I think it's been shown all season, the bigger the game, the more Rangers get up for it. You know, away at St Mirren, I said it on Friday, fancied a draw. Just a game where it just had Rangers dropping points all over again. And this season they've dropped so many points at home and in games they should be winning. But I think if you look at the defending for the 2 goals, singling Enciala out, I think the first goal, it's a long throw-in. He doesn't go and win the first header. It bounces and he puts it in the net. And then the second one, he tries to play him offside and runs out and lets the boy run behind him. It's terrible defending. Tavernier gets a ball put inside him. So I just think defensively Rangers all season have been weak. And Barry must be pulling his hair out. Listen, I think the staff in there are all Rangers minded. They're desperate to do well, but some of the players for me have chucked it down tools now.
Yeah, I don't think they've chucked it. I think they've not been good enough, Ruffy. I think he's walked in, and certainly from sources that I know within that camp, I've looked at some of the players and thought, how can you possibly put on a Rangers jersey? I mean, if anything, I don't see... I mean, could there be a big shift if Rangers were to win against Celtic in another meaningless Old Firm game? If there is such a thing?
A shift towards Barry in favour?
Well, what happens is, depending on a derby win, sometimes you get an erratic shift.
I don't think the Rangers fans will be fooled by it.
No, I don't think so. No, I think obviously Celtic with the double, they've got the cup final coming up. You know, they will win the most of their other games. I think the Rangers supporters will enjoy the day, as supporters do. You beat your biggest rivals. But I'm like Tam, I just think...
Wait a minute, they haven't done it yet.
No, I know they haven't, but I mean, we're talking about players that are no good enough. See, like 2 months ago, we were talking about Denoli, 6 million, world beater. We're talking about Tierney, being worth this. We were talking about Igamane being worth this. These guys aren't performing.
Yeah.
These are guys you're talking a lot of money about, and they're just not... Well, not that they're ball on their backsides, but they're just not producing the goods.
Yeah, your command of the pronunciation of any Rangers player is diabolical. Since
Denoli was a horse. I think he won a Gold Cup.
He was McManus.
Since Morelos, he's been all over the place. By the way,
Denoli, is that
what is it?
Danilo.
Danilo.
This is a man who was brought up in Greg, Johnstone and Young. You know what I mean? That's all he wants to... That's the only
remember horse Denoli?
Yeah, I remember it.
But by the way...
if he remembers it.
Yeah, well, amazingly. Can I just say that, apart from anything else, they're not good enough. The players are not good enough. The recruitment has been woeful over the course of it. I mean, I know I've said countless times that Barry would love the job. But that point that you're making there, and this is the key point of it, and this is where people pick, and I don't care, who picks what, whether they want to listen to radio shows, want to read a certain paper, want to watch a certain television show, want to, watch a certain podcast. If you're a sensible football fan, you can sift through what I call the drosh journalism, which is basically somebody who's a flag waver who writes anything you want or says something to try and boost a player's appeal. Nobody on this show or in another few other shows that I know would be turning round and saying Igamane's worth 6 million, Danilo after 1 goal's worth this, some other guy's worth 20 million. This is a nonsense of this knee-jerk to try and somebody saying to them, boost the price up, see if we can get this boy shifted. The players that have been there, you're looking at consistent players, the players who have put themselves there and said, right, I'm going to graft consistently. The Rangers fans, the sensible ones, they're not fooled. They're not fooled by some of them who have not been able to step up to the plate when the going gets tough.
No, I think it's just a desperation at times with Rangers and the supporters. They're desperate for someone to come through and be a big player for them, and maybe get big money for them. We spoke about Enciala after 2 or 3 games. We're talking about him being the new Van Dijk, and
which paper was that?
I don't know. It was. I don't know. But somebody they were raving about him. Not good enough for me. Igamane scored a hat-trick against Hibs. Wolf, he's in the new Ronaldo. No, that's not happening either. So there's players in that team. Raskin. I think there's one player, probably Cherny, out of that whole squad. If you're a Rangers supporter and you say, right, you can keep who you want to keep for next season, I think there's one, Peter. I think they would get rid of everybody else. I think they would get Cherny.
Yeah.
And I think they would be bored about Raskin leaving. Not Dessers. Not for me.
Would you pay $6 million for him?
Who?
Cherny.
Yes, I would. I think he's good.
Well, I don't think he's a £6 million player.
What is a £6 million?
I think he's excellent. I think he's a good player.
What is a £6
Playing in
million?
that poor team.
£6 million player.
£6 million. Celtic played £11 million for Arne Engels.
Yeah, but I think they've won a watch there. I think he's got something. You can see he's got something. He's only a young lad. He's got a trick.
$9 million either.
Well, look at his goals. He's only played, 13 games and he's got about 18 goals. Something like that, you know. So they're a work in process. I just think Cherny.
There's only one for me, Peter, and that's Cherny. I think Cherny could get into the Celtic squad and be and compete for a place. I think he's a really, really good player. I think his numbers this season in a poor team have been excellent. And I think in a better team, he would show up better. But apart from that, Peter, if I'm a Rangers supporter, I'd be like, just we're on about the rest.
Does anybody get pass marks
This season?
Just Cherny?
People are talking about Dessers scoring 23 goals, 24 goals. I don't think that's a massive achievement for a striker at Rangers. I don't. Peter, he should have had 40 or 50. What about the chance he missed at the weekend? And he skied it over the bar. So, not for me. I honestly, that whole squad needs ripped up next season. If I'm a Rangers supporter, I'm looking for maybe one player, Cherny, and the rest can go, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, interesting stuff there, but let's not forget, great credit to St Mirren. The way they performed in the match deserves some praise from all of us, because yet again we listened to a very sensible man in Stephen Robinson. I'm sure we're going to talk about him in relation to the Hearts job shortly, Ruffy. But nevertheless, this is what he had to say after that 2-2 draw.
I'm actually disappointed. I thought we should have won the game. We scored 2 great goals and we should have scored 2 more. You know, Maeda and Roland know they should have scored, but they got in them chances, and that's what we credit them for. And Maeda was a great reaction to it, played really, really well throughout. So, yeah, overall, I thought we were the better team throughout the game and deserved to win.
Yeah, I mean, off the back of Barry saying nobody's scared to play Rangers, and then you have a St Mirren manager coming in there with the resources he's had to deal with, saying we deserve to win. And by the way, not an isolated incident against Rangers for St Mirren.
No, but you can look at the St Mirren players. You can look at their body language. You can look at, you know, the commitment they're putting in for their teammates. You know, they seem to be a right good bonded team. They all want to fight for each other. Even when they go behind, they're still fighting away. That's what Rangers don't have. They don't have that group of players who seem to all want to fight for their mates. You know, and I always think it's good if you're in a team and you have that bonding between players that you all want to fight for each other. And I see that in St Mirren. When we had Stephen in here, and you can tell the way he's talking, that is, everybody loves coming into training, everybody loves playing, everybody loves getting a win. And that's what kind of team they are. They're just a bunch of fighters and a lot of quality on their side as well.
Oh, I think so. I think the way they play as well, Tam. I mean, I've watched them not playing against the top clubs. You know, they can mix it up, you know, and, you know, at times Gogic is a wee bit of an enforcer, which you need. Mark O'Hara, a bit of class there. And, you know, Olasanya's got his big move off the back of his efforts.
Yeah, I don't think they're a kick and rush team, Peter. I think that they can play both ways. They can play the ball at the back and play through the lines, or they can get it forward and get the ball in the channels. And I think they're very difficult to play against. You've seen the first goal. I think the boy Phillips has got a long throw. You know, that's a weapon as well, you know, in Scotland anyway. And Mark O'Hara is a quality player as well, you know, scored a number of goals this season. So, yeah, I think Stephen Robinson's, listen, we know how good a job he's done. You know, 3 years in a row he's in the top 6, punching well above their weight. And I agree with Ruffy, it's a real tight-knit squad. You know, there's no egos in there, there's no standout players, and they go about their business every week, win, lose or draw. They leave everything out in the park, and more times than not, that's more than capable of getting them a result.
Did I see Killian Phillips playing a Rabona during the match?
For God's
sake, man, what's happening here?
I was unlucky with it. I cannot do that. I could never be able to do that. I like him as well. He's a good player. So, listen, St Mirren are outsiders to catch. I think Dundee United in 5th, but you never know with Stephen Robinson. They've got a big game coming up at Aberdeen at home at the weekend. If they win that, then they'll start dreaming about Europe.
It's a good point, Ruffy. I can do a couple of step overs and maybe lob somebody from the halfway line, but I couldn't do a Rabona, could you?
You'd end up kicking yourself, wouldn't you?
I see some of these things on TikTok, you know, where the young guys coming up with all these skills and then he curls it into the roof of the net. I'm thinking to myself, I'd need surgery. It just couldn't happen. Okay, I'll tell you another link here. 10 years as it is, Hearts need surgery, major surgery. They sacked their manager. That was after a 1-0 defeat to Dundee at Tynecastle. The Hearts fans had had enough. We mentioned it before on Friday's show that when you start to hear the Hearts fans saying, no, you know, he's not for us. And then off the back of that, I looked at the stands and one of my mates had said to me, by the way, there's a lot of hospitality that's not been taken up. That's when the alarm bells ring for a board.
Yeah, well, listen, we spoke about it last week, Peter. He's not won those big games. You know, and a couple of weeks ago, you know, I thought he would be under pressure if he didn't beat Aberdeen, and then the first game was Dundee at home, a game they could not afford to lose because it's not quite dragged them into it. But you know, they've got Ross County away at the weekend to a sitting second bottom. I think they're 5 points behind. So, listen, they're in a little bit of trouble at the minute. I think they'll get out of it. I think they've got enough quality to get out of that. But you can't be losing 1-0 at home to Dundee, particularly when you look at the games before the split. You know, 0-0 away to Motherwell, 1-0 at home to Dundee United, not scoring enough goals, not winning those games, and I wasn't surprised on Saturday night when I heard he'd got the sack. So it's back to the drawing board for Johnstone Analytics, and listen, they've got to take a lot of the blame as well because it was them that picked him, and a lot of Hearts fans had reservations from the start. I don't think he was a big enough character. I just looked at him, I didn't see a Hearts manager, Peter. I didn't see a Jim Jeffy. I didn't see somebody with a real personality for that job. It's a big job and you've got to have big shoulders to take it, and I didn't see it with Neil Critchley, and as I said, I think he was out of his depth at Hearts.
Well, they've got to try and find somebody, but on the performances alone, that's where you judge it. He started to, I call it the classic, he started to talk like Lee Johnson, and you were switching off at times, having to listen to what he had to say, because what you were watching out in the field was not the game that he was watching when he was coming into the post-match press conference, Ruffy. And, you know, now suddenly, when you get a manager like that and the board are faced to make a decision, suddenly the fans are starting to say, well, wait a minute, this is another manager that you've sacked. We're going to start to look at you and we're going to be more critical because across the city, Hibs are flying and we're not happy with the way the team's playing, this supposed Jamestown analytics, and that's what we're watching. We're being asked to pay top dollar. I'm sorry, it's not good enough.
Yeah, well, that's...
Is it Ann Budge or is it Andrew McKinley?
Well, they're the ones that are getting it. You know, they were the bees and E's a couple of years ago. You know, could do no wrong. All the PR stuff was brilliant. The football was good. But then, as you say, when it shifts to the pressure being on them, and then they go around a boardroom, and then they have to make a decision. You know, I felt a wee bit sorry for them at the weekend because they could have won that game 3 or 4-1 quite easily against Dundee, the chances they had. Boy, Carson had an absolutely unbelievable day in the Dundee goal. But when the crowd shift to the board, that's when you know the manager's under pressure.
Yeah, and the other thing which Dundee had, which they don't have at the moment, and through choice, when they had their biggest game against Motherwell, he benched their best goal scorer in the last 3 or 4 years in Shankland, when they really needed a point to get them, you know, that 3 points to get them up into the top 6. And he had a gilt-edged opportunity. And he's the best of the strikers, and it went inches past it for Park. But suddenly you see a Simon Murray who scored 22 goals for Dundee, and that is the difference, you know. And he hits it, and it ends up going through one of the players, the Hearts defender's legs, into the back of the net. Yeah,
he took it well, Peter. I think he's had a fabulous season. As I said, he's scored a number of goals over the last few years. A couple of seasons at Ross County, prolific. You know, really. I think he's got better as he's got older, Peter. I think at Hibs he was kind of bit part. I don't think he was a regular every week at Hibs. I thought he was maybe just a little bit under that quality. He needed to be a regular at Hibs, but went to Ross County, went to Dundee, and his goals to game record in the last 2 or 3 seasons has been outstanding. And you know, there's a couple of friendlies coming up for Scotland. You know, and I think he's probably just a wee bit too old. But I think it'd be crazy for Steve Clarke not to be at least thinking about giving him some sort of sniff. With the amount of goals he scored this season, he's in the PFA. You know, he's in the final 4 for the PFA Player of the Year as well. So Yeah, he's scoring goals in a struggling team, and I think that's a sign of a really good striker.
Yeah, Dundee, they've a crucial 3 points. I'm wondering, do you think they're going down?
No. I think he'll keep them up, Simon Murray. I think his goals will.
This could buck the trend for you in your whole career of being a Jonah for your mates.
Yeah, hopefully fingers crossed for Tony and Stuart Taylor. They don't go down.
You don't know anybody at Ross County, no?
No, I think Ross County aren't bothered. I think that's 4 or 5 defeats in the trot. We're going to obviously speak about them in a second, but I think they're the team that's going to finish second bottom. And I think if you're Livingston, probably looking like Livingston, unless Falkirk really bottle it, then I think you'd fancy your chances against Ross County. I'm not quite sure of them at the minute. They've not got a lot of goals in them either, and I think Ross County will be second bottom now.
Hearts manager. I mean, listen, the nature of the game and the nature of journalism, we all have to sometimes go into a darkened room, get the darts out, Ruffy, and just start firing it at a few names here and there. I don't think Stephen Presley will get it because the Hearts fans can't stand him for joining Celtic.
I liked him. I worked with Elvis at Falkirk. I thought he was a really, really good coach.
He's a good guy. I was going to say he's a good lad, but I'll get slaughtered for that.
He's a really good guy.
He's a very misunderstood guy, but I really like Stephen Presley. But I don't think he'll get it because I don't think the Hearts fans like him. I stand to be corrected on that point. Over and above that, I have championed, as you are well aware, constantly on this programme, John McGlynn. Might not be popular. Some people might look and say, wait a minute, he could bottle it with Falkirk, but you'll look at the evidence of the way his team
before
plays.
Robbo?
John Robertson.
No, Robbo. Stephen Robertson.
Stephen Robinson.
Steve-O.
The Stefster. The Robmeister.
Junior me.
See, to be honest with you, if you're looking and you're saying to yourself, no, I think Stephen Robinson and John McGlynn are for me, if you were going for people who know the league and know Scottish football, then those two should be in the running. Stephen Robinson, for me, should be quoted, as we mentioned him before. Critchley got the job, but he, for whatever reason, never got a sniff. Whether it's got to be somebody that embraces the Jamestown analytics or not, I still think they should go to someone closer to home here who will embrace this Jamestown analytics.
His wee scout, Martin Foyle, would be out a gig, wouldn't he?
He's only got this guy who just phones him up and said, he's a right good player.
Traded in for a computer, sorry, all the best.
Can you imagine saying to him? By the way, as Stephen Robinson said, he's got a guy that he trusts. Now, who's to say, he said, OK, I'll take your Jamestown analytics, but I'm going to send Martin out to have a wee look at the boy as well.
Yeah, I think we were all impressed when he was in the studio, and I think there has to be a time when somebody says, yeah, let's look at the managers that are in Scotland who know, the players that are in here. I mean, let's not forget that Hearts at the beginning of the season identified, 2-3 players for the Premiership? Spittle come in, who else come in? There was Penrice and things. Aye. So...
Yeah, I haven't heard. I mean, he picked up an injury.
I don't know who it is.
I know. So sometimes they've got to look at themselves, look, let's concentrate on Scottish football. Let's get somebody in who knows the players that are here. I was saying he's got contacts down in England, and the contacts that he's brought up to St Mirren have been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Who would you like to see get it?
Yeah, the man for St Mirren, yeah.
Yeah, OK. Whether that happens, sorry to the St Mirren fans on this, but give us your thoughts on it. We have mentioned that there's lots to come. We'll be hearing from quite a few people who are happy. Down south, we'll hear from Arna Slot. We're going to hear from John McGlynn as well. Are Falkirk going to bottle it? Is this going to be the mother of all nightmare documentaries that we're making on them? Also, give us your thoughts on the battle for third place. Aberdeen suddenly, got that one goal, and boy, what a goal it was to beat Hibs.
Yeah, listen, it was a goal fit to win any game, Peter. I think that he looks fit and sharp now, and he took his goal. He was unlucky with the one just before it was offside.
Kevin Nisbet, yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Nisbet was unlucky with the one. I think the boy Keskin just went too early and squared it for him, but yeah, it's a wonderful goal. It's out of nothing, it's not a great header for Bashiri, but he's got a lot to do, and he just takes it down, and before it drops, he hits it in the volley, dipping over the goalkeeper. So wonderful goal. In a game of very few chances, I think it was very cagey. But I think if you look overall, Aberdeen maybe just deserved to nick it. But disappointing result for Hibs. I didn't think they were at their best. Didn't think they really went out and believed that they were going to win the game. I think towards the end, at the last 20-30 minutes, I thought we were quite happy with a draw, and it's always dangerous to sit in and play for a draw. And they done that, and they got punished in the end. But
the goal difference favours Hibs.
Yeah, they're still basically a point ahead. but they've got a huge game coming up at the weekend, Dundee United at home, and Aberdeen are away to St Mirren. So I think this weekend we'll sort who's going to finish third, because
This is the defining game.
I think this is the defining weekend for me, because you've obviously got Celtic to play and Rangers to play, all those three clubs. Sorry, two clubs, Aberdeen and Hibs, have got Celtic to play as well, and Rangers. So I think this, if Hibs can win the game and Aberdeen don't, then I think the third's there for the taking.
Buffy?
Yeah, I think we all agreed that Hibs had the momentum. Okay, they get beat at the weekend, but the tremendous run they were on, there's still a lot of belief in there. You know, I still think there's twists and turns, but I think Hibs might just have the sniff on this one.
Yeah. I've got to say thanks to Robert, who says, Peter, you haven't mentioned Neil Lennon for the Hearts job. Is that a first? It's only a matter of time. I mean, I can't believe they haven't gone for him or Malky.
Lenny, Malky.
Yeah. Who else have we
Robbo.
got? Hey, yeah, Barry. It's all there, isn't it? I must apologise to anybody who thinks we've got our favourites on any of these vacant jobs. Who's going to finish third? Why don't you give us your opinion on it? Is it going to be Aberdeen? Is it going to be Hibernian? We want to hear from you. Tam thinks next weekend's games are the defining games in the battle for third. We want your thoughts on it. Elsewhere, I mean, honestly, I decided to go to Rugby Park.
Your game?
Oh my God, it was unbelievable.
Kelly pie at half time?
The only thing that was good was the Kelly pie.
Pies are tremendous.
The Kelly pie was the only thing that was good, Ruffy, because quite simply, I looked at my watch at one point, and at 36 minutes in the game, before the ball had come over from Bruce Anderson to header the first goal, there wasn't an attempt on goal. There wasn't even a shot anywhere near the goal. Both keepers hadn't a save to make. It was dire. I mean, absolutely dire. And the only bit of quality was Danny Armstrong whipping it in right across the 6-yard area to the back post, and there was Bruce Anderson, who had grafted the whole game, who got the header.
Yeah, and you could see the relief on Derek McInnes's face when that goal went in. There was a huge burden lifted because I think everybody thought they were the team that were on free fall. So when you get that first goal, the whole place sort of lifted for a wee while. You were there to see it. And the second goal, obviously, I don't think Ross County offered much at all, you know, in the game. And certainly it's just taking the 3 points now for Kilmarnock and moving on. Yeah,
and that's exactly what both managers had to reflect for very different reasons. Up came Paul Sheeran because Derek McInnes got a knee operation and didn't want to climb the stairs, which is totally and utterly understandable. So here's the thoughts of Paul Sheeran and Don Cowie.
Probably at times it wasn't overly pretty. I think both teams tried to get it forward and pick up the bits and play for there as much as they could. I thought we stood up to their physicality, certainly the early part of the game. And once it settled, I thought we deserved the 3 points in the end up, in all honesty.
Well, that's the fact of the matter. We can't get away from it. It's in our own hands. You know, we've got 4 games to go. There's still got to be an honesty in terms of the run of form that we're in. And we've got to, you know, rectify that and put it to a stop.
I think County are in the playoff.
I think so as well. Wee boy Hale is doing his best to dig them out of hole, but I can't see any other goal scorers on that team just now. I don't think the boy White scores enough. And at the back, I mean, I thought that first goal could have been prevented. The boy at the back post just misjudged the ball completely. The only hope they've got is their home games. They always dig in it. They always make it difficult.
Home to Hearts at the weekend.
Yeah, that's a. Have they got 3 at home without putting you in the spot? Have they got?
Yeah, you always do that, Ruffy. Do you know that? Is there any chance
if they had a 3 at home, that's the only chance they've got.
Yeah, and I'm about to tell you, Ruffy, as I quickly look through all of Wraith Rovers, Ross County's fixtures, and here we go, Ruffy, for Ross County in the last few matches. Somebody's going to try and beat me to it on our feed, but in the last matches that they have, they've got Hearts at home, then they're away to St Johnstone and Dundee, then they've got Motherwell at home.
It's only got 2.
4 games left.
Gone.
Yeah, I think so. Only the 2. If they'd 3, the last 3 out of the whatever remaining is, they'd have a chance. But no, I can't see it.
No, I think playoff, but they've got to go to St Johnstone, Peter.
Yeah.
And that's St Johnston's last hope. I think they're 5-6 points behind them.
No, St Johnstone's gone.
I think they're gone, but you know, they win that, you never know.
And on the back of that, Motherwell 3, St Johnstone 2. Here's what Michael Wimmer and Simo Valakari had to say at the end of that game.
We have to keep working, and we have to improve and develop the game. Always don't stop this, and also to work on this on this trainings week. And we have 4 games, 4 tough games, and we want to collect as many points as possible, and also to improve the playing style.
Yes, we were before the match. We were in difficult situation. Now we are even more difficult situation. We need some other results going our way, these next matches. But it doesn't change the most important thing. The key thing is we need to win our matches. If we can't win our matches, then it's goodbye.
Yeah. Well, I think well done to Simo. He's not mincing his words here. He's got 3 home games, Ruffy. He's got Kilmarnock, Ross County and Dundee at home, and then Hearts away.
Yeah, well, it's more of a positive situation in Ross County.
Well, let's look at the table.
They are digging it.
Have a wee look at the table, Ruffy, and give us your thoughts on it, because quite clearly at the bottom end, I think St Johnstone, even 6 points too much to make up with the.
Yeah, but if they can cut it to 3, that put pressure on everybody else, and obviously with the home games coming up, they certainly are fighting. Even at Motherwell, they're no just chucking it and just saying, "Oh, we're out of this." They're fighting and fighting. So.
Okay, St Johnstone to make the playoff.
Well, that Dundee win at Hearts takes a wee bit of the pressure off of them. I think it will be St Johnstone and Ross County eventually.
Yeah.
Well, St Johnstone's next 2 games, Peter, they've got Kilmarnock at home, and Kilmarnock, as you can see there, have been horrendous away from home all season. If they win that and Hearts beat Ross County, it's down to 3, and then St Johnstone have got Ross County at home the following week.
Yeah.
So if you're a St Johnstone fan, you're thinking, right, we need to win the next 2 games, and we could possibly be level. So that's the way I see it. I think the next 2 games for St Johnstone have got to take 6 points. If they do, they've got a chance.
Okay. If you've had a look at the table, give us your thoughts on it. What do you think? Who's going down? Who's going into the playoff? And in that playoff position, who are they going to be able to take? Will they be able to defeat Livingston and Ayr United, or possibly, I think we all know it's Wraith Rovers now, because this will look as if they're blowing it as well, unless you're going to tell me differently, Ruff.
Oh no, after that wee bit of luck.
97th
minute, 97th minute, everything would have been out the window. So
you could see it coming, couldn't you? Honestly, I don't know about Falkirk. What is happening?
Yeah, I don't know how that boy got sent off with 83. John McGlynn must have been pulling his hair out.
Yeah,
to get sent off at that stage of the game, when you know what's at stake, disappointing for the.
This is what John McGlynn had to say after that late defeat to Partick Thistle.
We've been giving ourselves these situations for a good few weeks now, so we're bringing it on ourselves. Mentality at the minute's not great, we're no killing teams off, and then we are getting done with sucker punches at the other end. So it's the wrong time for doing that,
Yeah. John McGlynn, he was scathing about it, just questioning the whole mentality, ability to go and convert those chances. And again, I watched them actually. They were cruising against Wraith Rovers, I have to tell you, Tam. And then, suddenly a man gets sent off, and the whole thing flips in a 10-minute period. But again, at the Thistle game, you just knew it was coming.
Yeah, they're trying their best to throw it away, Peter. They've had so many chances in the last 4 or 5 games. Livingston away, Shinnie scored the last minute, 1-0. Ayr United away, Ayr United scored in the last minute, 1 each. 1-0 up against Wraith Rovers, man sent off, beat. Played against 10 men for the majority of the game the other night and get beat. So they are trying their very, very best to throw this away. And if they do, there's not a hope in hell they win the playoffs. I think they'll be that sick with throwing the league away that you can forget them to go up. So they've got to win on Saturday. And listen, I think it's great for the league. I think that Livingston have run a great run of form. I think their run maybe just ran out of games. But if it went for another 3 or 4 weeks, I think they'd overhaul Falkirk. But I think, Falkirk surely at the weekend at home, full house, go and beat Hamilton.
Friday, sorry. Yeah. Ruffy, do you see it happening?
Ruffy called it, to be fair to him. We were in here saying it was a foregone conclusion, and you've got to give Ruffy credit. He says it wasn't done yet, and he was right.
It was very impressive that when John McGlynn did his after the game interview, everybody was holding a PLZ mic.
Yeah, that's because PLZ were the only ones there interviewing him.
Were they?
Yes.
Well, more fool them then.
He's a
full
company.
then.
I know. I can't lie. I've got to be honest with people. We're covering it. Nobody else other than the BBC is
It
there.
was very good.
Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, Partick have got to try at the weekend, Ruffy, and make sure that they are in that fourth spot. It's down to the wire.
Yeah, it's going to be the radio one, isn't it? Well, how was it we done saying, don't tell me what's happening, and the other was it, Suburban Manager?
Yes.
It says, don't anybody mention the other game,
Yeah.
but I'm sure you just want to know. You want to know what's happening in it. I mean, you look at the game, we don't know what's going to happen to Hamilton on Thursday. You know, that could be a big say as well. But, I mean, you got to expect Falkirk to win. And then you don't know what Livingston's looking at. You know, they'll be saying in the back of their mind, they've got to win as well. So 2 home games against the teams in form, you would think would win it. I don't know if Queen's Park will down tools against Wraith Rovers. But it's going to be an interesting Friday night.
If it's Livingston against Ross County, I'm finally going to tip Livingston.
I fancy Livingston.
Championship.
I fancy Livingston to come up, Peter.
Yeah.
I do. I think they've in a really, really good run of form at the minute. You know, they've got a bit of everything. Robbie Muirhead's had a fantastic season for them, really talented player.
Yeah.
David Martindale's getting the best out of him. They're fit, they're strong, they can mix it up. You know, they can go long, they can pass it. I think they're a really good side, and if I think Falkirk will win, if Livingston in the playoffs, then I would really fancy them.
Kaiser says a lot of unhappy folk in the PLZ studio the day after the Dons win on Saturday. Is that right, Peter? Yeah, well, listen, you've got to give Kaiser his moment, and Kenny out there in LA. They're looking...
Hazard Day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Revisit this at the end of the season.
I tell you.
To be fair, I can't lose now. If Hibs finished third, I'd be delighted. If Aberdeen finished third, I did say they were nailed on to finish third. Because if they don't finish third, that is going to be a gift. Me saying just give them third now and finish fourth.
Absolutely. And thanks to so many people who are throwing up names for the Hearts job. Who's going to get it? Even somebody says Ange to Hearts. I'd love that, would you not? I mean, that would be absolutely magnificent, wouldn't it, Ruffy? You know, you've got a new Rangers manager, Ange Postecoglou at Hearts, Brendan Rodgers at Celtic. The whole league would just explode. It would be fantastic. Anyway, lots of great comments. Thank you very much. If you are not aware of it, this afternoon some of the nominees were out there on parade for the PFA Player of the Year awards on Sunday, the 4th of May. Callum McGregor, Daizen Maeda, Nicolas Kühn and Simon Murray of Dundee. That is the last 4, the 4 that the players all vote for. It's the players who submit their vote for the Player of the Year, and these are the 4 players in the running for it. And I'll stick my neck out and say I don't think anybody can deny Maeda the award. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say so. I think he's been superb, obviously, taking over that centre striking role. You know, everybody thought, you know, how would he adapt to it, and he certainly adapted to it very well with the amount of goals that he scored.
Tam?
Yeah, Maeda for me.
Yeah.
Stick on.
And the young player nominees were announced as well. Arne Engels of Celtic, Hamza Igamane of Rangers, James Wilson of Hearts and Lennon Miller of Motherwell. Where's your money going there, Tam?
I don't think any of them has been a real standout, Peter.
No?
No, not for me. I'll go for Engels. I think he's played probably the most games out of them all, and Lennon Miller's been in and out with injury. Igamane not, James Wilson no, so I think probably a clean sweep for Celtic.
Yeah, I think Lennon Miller will win it.
Lennon Miller's the name that everybody's talking about for the future. Tam's maybe got it right that has he played enough games and been a standout in the games that he's played in. Yeah, he's been superb in a lot, but I think the boy Engels has got something to offer.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really do. I think he's going to be a magnificent player for Celtic.
Oh, that's interesting. You've been battering on about that in the last couple of weeks.
I see wee flicks and he reads things that you don't expect, and he does things that are unexpected, and I think he might be one of the ones like needs that year just to settle.
Yeah, okay. Rob says Lennon Miller is the winner, Igamane, then Engels, then Wilson. Paul Baird is not too complimentary. He says should go to Dud of the Year to Shanklin, which is unkind, Paul. Come on, give him a break. He hasn't managed to get the goals this year, and I think when you don't have a goal scorer in your lineup, or your goal scorer from the year before is off form, the manager gets the sack normally.
Yeah, it's probably why they're not in the top 6, Peter. They've not had a consistent goal scorer all season.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to say congratulations to Liverpool, 5-1.
Good weekend for you.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, good weekend for you.
What a double. And Liverpool 5-1, and here's Arne Slot on that 20th top flight title.
That is so special. The moment I knew I would become the new head coach over here, that's already a moment where you're so proud of, to be part of such a great football club. Then now to be part of the history of this football club is something I think I could have only dreamt of 2, 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, listen, some people have said it's not been a great season, but it's hard to win the English Premier League, and Liverpool have been there and they've done the business, and they've managed to keep the fans happy with Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah signing new contracts. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold will be off-ski, but they're going to sign, obviously. They'll be looking to strengthen from a position of strength.
Oh, you would think so, and the contacts the manager must have as well. It's an exciting time for the Liverpool supporters. Obviously, you said Salah and Van Dijk signing on. That's a good start, to bring any other players in, to know that they're going to be there. So, yeah, I'll be really waiting to see what kind of European player they bring in.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, the cup final, we got it wrong, Tam. We thought it was going to be Aston Villa against Man City. Boy, Crystal Palace absolutely battered them.
They were superb, and I thought Man City were really good as well. I thought they're starting to hit their stride as well. So it'll be a great final. Palace will get in there with a chance of winning it.
Yeah, what an afternoon it's been, and what a weekend it's been as well. This afternoon, the nominees for the PFA Scotland Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year were announced. You can give us your thoughts on that. And over and above that, it was title celebration day at Celtic Park. So many of the Celtic fans who couldn't get to Tannadice for obvious reasons for the tickets, and of course some of them couldn't source any spare tangerines to throw onto the park to make their point, and a legitimate one at that about pricing. But the Celtic fans that didn't pay any money to go to Tannadice enjoyed themselves at Celtic Park, celebrating as the team came out. And congratulations to Brendan Rodgers. It is not easy to win a title. It's 4 consecutive, Ruffy. It's 55. It's James Forrest with that unbelievable haul, and Callum McGregor hot on his heels behind him. I just wonder if anyone can stop them for the treble.
Yeah, well, somebody can, but will they? We don't know. Celtic have already tanned Aberdeen at Hampden. I don't think they'll be looking forward to going back there. I think Aberdeen will have to be better organised, but if you're looking at the whole season, the style of football that Celtic's played, and I think a lot of the supporters and the other teams would have to admit, some of the stuff has just been fantastic.
Yeah, and as ever, we have to say it, Tam, second is nowhere in this city, and Rangers, the fans will be wondering, when is it going to be announced? What are the changes? What are the plans? This has to happen, or Rangers will be staring at the abyss for years to come. They've got to look and think this is a big summer of change for them.
No, it's massive, Peter. I think the Rangers supporters would be quite happy if the season ended today. I think that it's been woeful. Little run in Europe that's kept them interested, but domestically Rangers have been really, really poor. And yeah, I think there's going to be big changes in summer from top to bottom. It's already the wheels in motion now. The guys coming in at boardroom level, and that squad needs rejuvenated. It needs more quality. It needs money spent in it. And if they don't do that, if they don't spend well, Celtic will win another treble next year.
Yeah, who's going to be the Hearts manager? Give us your thoughts on that as well. The build-up this week, will be covering as much football as we possibly can, looking at of course, the Champions League football. And just before we go, a couple of things I want to mention. Fair play, Scott McTominay scores 2 goals. Yeah. Napoli hit the front at Serie A, and we could have, along with Billy Gilmour, 2 guys celebrating a Serie A title win.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it was unthinkable maybe 10 years ago, but now, these kind of players have set the standard over there, and it'll be interesting to see if they win the league, who'll come after them. There's bigger teams than them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think the big clubs like Man United that would be looking at them?
I mean, they must be kicking themselves, Tam.
Just shows you how badly run that club is.
The 2 goals he scored were just replicas. First one, in ahead of his man, coming in late into the box, bang, and then he scores the exact same goal.
Terrific player. Played out of position at Man United, but Yeah, I think he's found a home at Napoli, and I think they're now focused to go on and win the league. But it would be great. I don't think there's been any Scottish players that's won in Serie A, won an Italian league title. So if they go and they go into an elite group, and my friend Paul Petrie was at a charity dinner last year, and one of Billy Gilmore's signed Napoli strips was up for auction, and they paid a pretty penny for it. So he's looking at the title race interestingly, and hoping that they can double his money or treble his money with that Billy Gilmore strip. Sorry, Paul, but I know you'll probably sell it if they win the league.
Yeah.
So if they win the league, do you think McTominay will get his painting on a big side of a house in Napoli? Like Maradona?
No, I think it's a wee bit early for that, Ruffy. I think you need to hang in a wee bit longer. But nevertheless, thank you to so many of you for your points of view. We try and read them out. Some of them that give us a right good kick in the teeth, but we're big enough and old enough and man enough to take it. It's about opinions. You'll get them on this programme, get a bit of banter, get some exclusive guests, and we'll leave you tonight thanking so many people who have contributed and signed up to PLZ Premium. Remember, all the content that you're watching at the moment is absolutely free. PLZ Premium is our new launch where basically we're giving you additional special content that we think you might like to watch over and above what we are giving you on our channel, and the figures have been absolutely sensational this season, not only for our programmes but following our reporters and our managers and players in Scottish football and in English football as well. And if you download the app, you'll get all the breaking news at your fingertips. You want additional special content as well? Then why not subscribe to PLZ Premium? Thank you for listening and watching.
PLZ Soccer is the #1 digital sports channel in Scotland, and we're offering you the chance to sign up to our exclusive PLZ Premium service.
All our existing content and weekly programmes across all our channels absolutely free of charge. PLZ Premium is offering you exclusive additional content to enjoy.
PLZ Premium offers you exclusive benefits on top of your monthly subscription.
The first 1,000 subscribers will receive a special A4 Legends poster as a PLZ Premium member.
You'll get exclusive video content, including a special Peter Martin Straight Talk 1-to-1 with a legend of the beautiful game.
Every month you'll have exclusive access to ask questions on our special live stream, and you can join us by live video link up.
You also get discounts on official merchandise,
early access to tickets for our live events, and exclusive behind the scenes footage.
We have a special free draw for premium members with the chance to win a Legends t-shirt.
Come and join the football family and be part of our brand new premium service on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel.
PLZ Soccer, delivering you the best coverage of Scottish football. Wherever you are, we are.